Volatility can collapse a market. We saw just recently how attempting to short an index can pull it right down in a short period of time. That could have been real ugly, real fast. Volatility doesn't just go away though. It keeps coming back like a nightmare you just can't shake. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at several economic indicators. It's one of those jam-packed episodes. Let's begin with this. Beware of US equity vol tremors. Past dynamics suggest clustered aftershocks rather than single jolts. What you are looking at is a report by SocGen. They produced this chart and you're looking at the VIX Index. In the short period of time that we have seen over the last couple months, you have seen the VIX rising considerably, and this was following year after year overall of declines in the VIX index, and so much so that people were shorting it and they were making a fortune off of it. And then the process changed course, and you can see what happened. Looking at this, you will see many instances, okay, over the years where volatility spikes, not just once, but multiple times. So we can expect this to happen again. The market dropped intraday 1,600 points. It then recovered somewhat, but it is incredibly violent. So we will take a look further into the VIX as time goes on. What I do expect is to see more of this aggressiveness, and that's not a good thing for the market as a whole. And you saw that with the shorting of this market and the results of that. Now this here, Wells Fargo residential mortgage applications. I covered it recently, but what I wanted to note was that currently we are looking at the lowest number since the financial crisis. I didn't specifically mention that in that previous video, so I think that it is very critical to talk about that when we look back and see the fact that, hey, we're being told everything's fine, and then we see these type of indicators popping up. Moving on. JP Morgan net charge-offs credit card. What you can see is that credit card debt has been rising, but more importantly, people can't pay that credit card debt. Well, it's interesting because we have many people who are delinquent on their debt repayments. This is being ignored because they will say, oh, it's contained to this group of people or that group of people. And unfortunately, that's not the way it's working. People in, different classifications, whether they're in, let's say, the, top 40% or maybe the top 60%, it doesn't matter. Unless you're part of that maybe top 20%, you're using your credit card and you are not paying it back on time. That's the statistics that I have seen. Historical US trade deficit 1989 to 2017, and you can see what has happened over the years. Clearly it has grown. Now, yes, there have been times where it's been bigger than it is today, but ultimately you can see the effect of all of this. At the same time, we have a devaluation of currencies. You have currencies going back and forth and, having some disagreements, you can say, between governments. All right. CBO's forecast implies, can you believe it, 45 consecutive years of a budget deficit. Look at where this has gone since the year 2000 although that wasn't a real budget surplus anyway, by stealing intragovernmental debt or simply just stealing. But anyway, looking at all of this, you can see where it has come from and where it will go. This implies that there will be no further financial crisis too, which is quite laughable. 30 biggest political donors on the Fortune 500. Political donations between the years 2007 and 2017. All right. Look at this here. I want to point out a couple things. You can see, first of all, that there are Democrats, Republicans, split in the colors here. While some of them vary, you will see that ultimately they all donate to both sides. And that's something very important. All of these political contributions are nothing more than bribes. But there is another term for all of this, and I think it's really funny how they've created this term, but it's not real. It's just a fake name that they've chosen. A lobbyist is somebody who ultimately negotiates with the government on behalf of the big corporations. That's ultimately what happens. Don't ever be fooled. Look at the amount of money that's being given to these politicians, and you have to understand why they do things the way they do. Why certain individuals, right here, good example, and others, of course, it's just one, work so tightly with the government. Well, we know exactly why. International trade as a share of state GDP. So this is interesting because you can see, for example, the GDP might be significantly higher in areas like California, Texas, New York than it is somewhere down the end of the line here, where you can see these states having, very little in comparison. Their trade internationally is much more insignificant when you compare it to a place like California. All right. Moving on. This video is going to be too long if I stay on and rant on. Now, you have heard of this company before, Saudi Aramco. It's trying to get some funding, trying to be the biggest IPO in history. It's been struggling with that. Do we go public? Do we not go public? Do we raise money? Yes or no? Ultimately, they're an extremely profitable corporation. Saudi Aramco surpasses some of the biggest names in global business. So you'll see that for yourself here, looking at $34 billion essentially, which surpasses Apple. This is one company that if it were to IPO, it would be absolutely massive. Perhaps it wouldn't give them what they want, but it looks like it's going to be absolutely massive. US dollar versus major trading partner currencies. Just wanted to show you this here, how it has done. You could see the positive numbers denotes dollar appreciation. The dollar has weakened against many currencies, whether it's the Canadian dollar or others. US business cycle expansions. Now you have to look at this consistently because as time goes on, this line starts to move up. and we are closing in on that period of time in which the expansion will be the longest in history. Now you can see where the average and the median are, and we've completely gone past that. It's not even a joke. This is something we really need to understand. Going back all the way to the 1850s, and yet things get out of hand. You can see that as time goes on, we see more wild scenarios. Debt to GDP projected to be above 100% in 2030 and 150% by 2046. Nobody wants to ask, though. Nobody. What's happening today behind the scenes? What about all of that intragovernmental debt? What about Medicare and Medicaid? What about, all of this Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all the bailouts that they've done and everything else in between that we have seen? Of course, that doesn't get mentioned. Otherwise, we'd see the chart doing one of these. CBO and the BIS forecast for debt to GDP, no matter who you look at, it is increasing dramatically. And then last but not least, you can see the price of crude oil increasing now, as of the recording of this video, to $67 a barrel. This has really come up here at this time. Taking a look at oil over the past year, essentially going back from this low point, you will see that it has increased quite significantly, and it's been steady here. I think that ultimately, if I can get my mouse to move over there, we're looking at just over $40 a barrel. Up till today, you will see that $67 a barrel. The price has increased dramatically. I don't know about you, but the price at the pumps is ridiculous. It's truly ridiculous, at least in my experience here in Toronto. I want to know what you are paying at the pump right now, whether that's measured in gallons or liters. Let me know. And I want to know what you are paying. Doesn't matter which country you're in. We need to collectively organize and be able to read each other no matter where we live across the world. That's all for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. And if you found the video informative, I know that you will find my books, The Money GPS, and my newer release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can actually flip through these books over at Amazon. All you have to do is go to the link in the description of this video, click on it. It'll bring you over to Amazon, where they have a look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of these books to see if you like them. Take care.